what's happening for me in my life? Like, why am I getting these sorts of results in my life? I'm really trying to get this, but I'm getting that. Like, why do I keep getting this instead of that? Well, I wanted to talk just a little bit about really beginning to understand the pieces, the pieces of our puzzle, and really beginning to explore and discover, really, because it's not often that we take the time to do this. It's not often that we say, okay, I'm going to explore me. There's lots of things happening around me and or to me, but I'm going to look at what's happening inside me with respect to everything else around me. So there's a few tools we can pull out of our toolkit to really help us figure out what's going on for us. And one of them is that my world, thee world. So really sitting down, digesting a situation that has happened for you, and literally putting the line down the sheet and going, what's my world story? What's the thee world story? Remembering that the thee world story is the facts, the things that are irrefutable facts. Like he sat in the chair, she raised her hand to the side of her lip, her lips curled up at the corner. Some people would call that a smile, some people would call that a grimace. So even to call it a smile or a grimace is kind of my world stuff. So we're literally just explaining and writing down the things that are irrefutable facts. And then on the my world side, writing down what we're interpreting and the kind of the story we're building around those facts. And of course, the interesting part of all of that is that we'll notice that the facts are very minimal, but the my world column is huge. And we call life the my world column. That's what we call life. But you see, it's all interpretation and assumptions and things that we drag from our past, and we assume that this is what's happening this time around. We think we know people, we think we know ourselves, so we think, well, he did this, and so I know when he does that, it always means he's mad. We just begin to make all these sorts of assumptions based on things that people say or certain gestures that they make. So it's really important to be able to split those apart, because the my world stuff is a choice. And that's the power of it, is to begin to really understand the level of choice we really do have in life. There's a whole bunch of facts happening as well, but there's all sorts of choice in terms of how we want to interpret and hold those facts. So that's definitely one tool. And if you see that your my world story is shrinking you, not enabling you to be the biggest possibility of yourself, then it's time to kind of look and say, how long do I want to hold on to this my world story? How long? How much more do I want to invest in that my world story? So it's a very powerful tool that we can begin to analyze any situation, or even anything that we're thinking internally as well. When we look at any given situation, we can ask the questions, I'm in the middle of an argument, and I can start to ask myself, in what I'm hearing from her and what I'm thinking and or saying, what story do I have about me with respect to that? What story, what's the subtext? What's the chatter that's going on in my mind? And the story of that chatter about me. She's telling me something that I should have clued into long ago. And I can't believe I didn't clue into that. Wow, am I ever stupid? So I start to build this story about, God, I can't believe I didn't clue into this. And I start to build this opinion that soon becomes a reality that, well, I must be stupid, because I just didn't get that at all. It's very important to pay close attention to the story that we build about ourselves inside our mind, because that becomes the story that we respond to life with. So that now, the next time, I've already got the idea that, holy crap, I've lost it, I'm stupid, I can't believe I didn't clue into that. So now I'm going to go to work or talk to somebody else. They may mention a news story that they heard on the news, and I didn't know that happened. So, wow, am I ever dumb? I didn't realize that was happening in the news. So I just start to, it's like this mold that just keeps kind of growing, this kind of fungus that just keeps getting bigger. We can start building all these scenarios around, I can start building all these scenarios around, man, I just really think I'm stupid. And then everything that shows up in my life seems to reaffirm that I'm stupid. So it's very, very critical to look at what's the stories that I have about me and what I see as possible for me. Like, oh man, I just could never become an accountant. I mean, I'm just not smart enough. I don't have the math skills. I tried it in university, I failed, and I just really don't, I would never go after that because I just know I can't do it. So we begin to have all these my world stories about life, but about us inside of life and what's possible. And it's exactly what we were talking about earlier. It's just the puzzle pieces. It's this puzzle that we've built, and it's got all these little pieces, and we think it's real, but it's not. And so, but sometimes we don't even know we're in the middle of these puzzle pieces and these stories. We just act from them, but we don't even know we're in them. And so it's important to be able to know what they are so that we can recognize them and wake up to them. Wake up to the stories that we tell about ourselves that is limiting our possibility. Of course, the biggest possibility is to just remove those stories altogether. So we look not only at what stories are we holding about ourselves inside our mind about ourselves, but we also look at what stories are we holding about others and inside of our mind about them. So it's sort of she's always just been a snob. Nothing will ever change. Because you see, the thing is that because our thoughts create our reality, then we give off a certain energy when we're around that person. If we think someone's an absolute snob and we're together with them in a room, we're going to be giving off that energy. We may be saying, hey, I really like you and this is really, I'm having a great time. But in the meantime, our energy is giving off this, wow, I just really think you're a snob. And we as human beings pick up messages energetically as well. And this isn't just subtle cues. This is beyond subtle cues. They talk about body language. I'm not talking about that. Body language also is a cue, and it is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm talking about something different. I'm talking about we literally give off, and we literally have an energetic field around us. And our words and our thoughts carry energy. We don't even have to speak our words. People pick up on the energy of our thoughts. And they've done very interesting experiments with respect to this. Dr. Emoto did some very interesting experiences with water, and you've probably seen these. They've done them different types of experiments with it. And he had jars of water that eventually he was going to freeze into ice crystals. And to one can or jar of water, he spoke and thought very beautiful thoughts, like, this is beautiful and the world is full of love. And he emitted that energy, and he as well spoke those words and thought those thoughts to that jar of water. And I think he had other people doing the same thing to that same jar of water. And then to another jar of water, they spoke and thought very violent thoughts like hate and I wished I could kill you and you're a useless nothing, and like just really super violent thoughts. And then he looked at the crystals, once the separate jars of water, I think he'd froze them or something like that, and he looked at how the different ice crystals looked. And it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. The ones where they spoke so lovingly too, the ice crystals were spectacular. Like if you've ever seen those really beautiful photography of individual snowflakes, and they're just stunning designs, like absolutely geometrically perfect and just stunning, like a work of art. This is what those crystals look like when that water was frozen, where they spoke lovingly to it. In contrast to the other jar, where the ice crystals they almost looked like they were deformed. They weren't beautiful at all. So what he was really trying to prove through that experiment is how much our words and our thoughts impact even things like water. Well, guess what? We're 70% water. Our human bodies are 70% water. So the words and the thoughts we have about others pick up. They may not fully understand it, but they pick it up on an energetic level. So when we're speaking to a person who we're saying nice things, but in the back of the mind, we're thinking, man, I can't stand this woman. She just drives me nuts. She is picking up on that, just like we are picking up on it when people are doing the same thing to us. So the importance of looking at what we think of others is that we can begin to see that when we think those things of others, that they then are responding to that energetic that we're sending out. So if someone were to walk up to you and just blatantly say, man, I really can't stand you, you're a snob. Of course you're going to have some sort of like wow. Or maybe you're going to fight back and retaliate, whatever it may be, right? But in the same way, energetically, we're sending that sort of energy out to people. And even though we don't say it, they're responding as well as a result of feeling that energy. So the importance of looking at what we think of others is because we create that reality for both of us. Even though we may not be saying the words, I can't stand you, if we're thinking the thoughts, it's getting energetically to them. And we're helping to create that reality of animosity between us. So that's the important part of digesting any situation that happens for you in your life, asking the question, what did that situation, when I was in the middle of that situation, what was I thinking about me? And how did that situation make me feel about me? What was the story going on about me? And what was the story going on in my head? Maybe I didn't speak it, but what was the story going on in my head about the other person as well? Because that tells us a place where we're stuck. It tells us a place where we keep ourselves stuck in a certain dynamic with this other person. The third place we can look is, what story do we have about the world and how it functions? The example that I used when we talked about this earlier is having the idea, you know what? There's the haves and the have-nots, and I'm part of the have-nots, and I just don't really ever see that I'm ever going to be anything different. That creates a reality for us of us continuing to be a have-not. So it's a self-perpetuating circle here, because we create our reality through our thoughts. So if we really strongly believe that, that's what's going to show up in our life, because the universe delivers us what it is that we're asking for. So we keep asking and telling, well, I'm never going to be part of the haves group, so the universe keeps delivering the experience of not being part of the have group. That's why it's important when we're really looking and diagnosing what's happening for me in my life. Like, why am I getting these sorts of results in my life? I'm really trying to get this, but I'm getting that. Like, why do I keep getting this instead of that? Well, the answer is you're getting this because that's what you're asking for. consciously or unconsciously, that's what you're asking for. And so that's why it's important to diagnose and kind of look at and internalize how we view ourselves, others, and the world, because that gives us a bit of a clue as to what we keep asking for to show up in our life. Yeah.